is a fact. There's no doubt about that. But I don't see any great objection to children having class discussions about these issues, because actually it's rather good practice in arguing, it's rather good practice in reasoning. So I don't have a problem with that. I worry about accepting the sort of form of words where people say the two theories ought to be taught, as though there are two theories. That, I think, is what really gets the goat of scientists. It's the implication that there really is a genuine scientific dispute going on when there isn't. It would be a little bit as though in classes on reproduction and sex education there was pressure to give equal time to the stork theory.
Is there any room for God in the curriculum?
I think there's room in the school curriculum for teaching religion, comparative religion. It's a very important part of current affairs, world history. You couldn't even begin to study English history, British history, because it's almost all about wars between Catholics and Protestants, European history. I'm quite surprised at the ignorance of today's children of the Bible compared to those of my generation. Whether you believe it or not, I think it's important to know it as literature, to be able to take your allusions from English literature. It's for the same kind of reason as you need to know about the Olympian gods, the Greek gods, the Roman gods, to appreciate Keats. Gods of history have been so important that you can't appreciate literature without them. And yet, I think very many modern children are really pretty ignorant of Scripture.
So when does the teaching of religion become inimical to what should be taught in schools?
Well, I don't think the teaching of religion is ever inimical. What is inimical is teaching a child, this is your religion. I think if you teach comparative religion, you teach about religion as an anthropological, sociological, psychological phenomenon. That's absolutely fine. Teach the Bible as literature. But the moment you say, you are a Catholic child, or you are a Protestant child, you are a Muslim child, that is really wicked. That becomes child abuse, because that means that you're now telling a child who's too young to know that it shares the opinions of its parents, opinions on fundamental things like the cosmos, morality, humanity, the place of humanity, etc.
But isn't it the parents who introduce religion to their children in the first place? Is that child abuse?
You can't stop parents doing anything like that, but what I would say is that it's the duty of the state, of the educational institutions, not to reinforce that. So when a child goes to school, it may already have been told by its parents, you are a Catholic child or you are a Protestant child. But then when it goes to school, it learns that. There are people who call themselves Catholics, there are others who call themselves Protestants, others call themselves Jews, and they're all different. These people believe this, these people believe that, and that would be true education. Whereas sending a child to a segregated sectarian school, which is only for Catholic children, or only for Jewish children, that I think is what's wicked.
So what do you think of faith schools and indeed the city academies, which are sponsored by religious benefactors?
I'm rather appalled by faith schools. Of course, there's nothing new about them, but what appalls me is the sort of Me Tooism. Because there have been Protestant and Catholic schools for a long time, then everybody else must get in on the act. It'd be much better to say, yes, it is unfair that we have Christian schools and not Muslim schools, so let's abolish the Christian schools. I don't mean abolish the schools, of course, but I mean abolish the sectarian aspects of them. And you ask also about the city academies, which are often sponsored by rich religious benefactors, sponsored to a very measly extent, I might say. You only have to put up £2 million, and that draws down £20 million of government money, and for that you get total control over the governorship of the school and the policy of the school, etc. It's a pretty good deal.
Now, you're thinking of setting up a foundation, the Richard Dawkins Foundation for Reason and Science. What's that about?
I've set up two companies, one in Britain, one in America, and both companies are now applying for charitable status in their respective countries. The aim of both of them is quite largely education as well as research. It has been misrepresented, I think very damagingly misrepresented in the press as a sort of anti-religion foundation. It's not that. It's pro-science and pro-reason. If we do get charitable status and manage to raise money, one of the things we would try and do is to go into schools and try to combat the rise of young earth creationism, in which of course we would have the enthusiastic support of bishops and vicars and priests who are even more annoyed by naive creationists than scientists are, because they get religion a very bad name.
Well, what can teachers run away with? I mean, if there was one message you would want them to understand from what you're saying, what would it be?
As a biologist, I think that evolution is absolutely crucial and fundamental, and you can't make any sense of life at all without evolution. And it's therefore odd, to say the least, that evolution gets left rather late in the biology curriculum. Children are taught a whole lot of facts about biology, a whole lot of facts about life, about how the body works, how the kidney works, how the heart works, etc. And the children are never taught, well, what's it all for? Why is it there? What's the underlying rationale for the whole thing? Evolution is that underlying rationale, and it surely ought to come very early in biological education. And not just the education of children who are sort of going to the biology stream, it should be for everybody, because it is the explanation for all our existences. It's the explanation for why we are, and not just us, but all living things, are so elegant and beautiful and carry this superb illusion of design. I think we should start teaching it almost from the cradle.